Hello, students, and welcome to our lesson on adding integers. Before we start, we do have a thoughtful do now. The do now says, math is full of challenges. What academic or mindful strategies will you use to tackle those challenges? I've seen so many students give up very easily when they do math, which is really a shame because I found through the years that if you just struggle a little bit through the hard parts, when you get it, most people love math. So I want you to think about what you can do to help you tackle the challenges of math. Maybe you could study harder, make note cards, all kinds of ideas, and we can help you with that. Today's lesson is on adding integers, and we have some rules. Integers with the same sign, we simply add and give them the sum, the same sign. So if we have 3 plus 6, both positive, they would equal a positive 9. If we had a negative 3 plus a negative 6, oops, let's fix that. That should be a negative sign. That would equal negative 9. So we just keep the sign. But when the integers have different signs, the rules are a little different, and this is where we have lots of mistakes. So let's get it right now, and then you'll never have to worry about it because you'll know it really well. When the integers have different signs, we're going to look at the notion of absolute value, which is what we studied yesterday, and we're going to subtract the integer with the lowest absolute value from the integer with the highest absolute value. And then after we do that, our answer, our sum, will take the sign of the integer with the highest absolute value. So if we have 3, negative 3, let's make it a negative 3 plus 6. You need to think in terms of the number line. So here's my 0, and here's my negative 1, negative 2, negative 3. And here's my 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So if we have negative 3, let's change our color. And we add 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Where does that put us? That puts us right here at positive 3. Well, how do we get that from here without using a number line? Well, the rule is look at the absolute value of each number. So the absolute value of 3, negative 3, is 3. The absolute value of 6 is 6. So we subtract the smaller absolute value from the larger absolute value. So 6 minus 3 is 3. But then we go ahead and we take the sign of the larger absolute value. Well, 6 is greater than 3 in terms of absolute value. And the 6 has a positive sign. This is an invisible positive sign here. So that's the sign that will go here. But remember, we don't need to write the positive sign when the number is all by itself. So we'll just quickly erase that. So 6 minus 3 is 3. Likewise, negative 3 plus 6 is 3. And that's what we see here on the number line. So ignore the signs, take the absolute value of both of them. Subtract the smaller from the greater and keep the sign of the one with the largest absolute value. If you feel a little confused, draw a number line and bounce those answers around and it will make sense to you. Negative 4 plus negative 5, same sign. Keep the sign. 4 plus 5 is 9. So the answer is negative 9. Number 2, 25 plus negative 7. Well, we ignore the signs and take 7 away from 25. and we have 23, excuse me, and 23 take away 7 is 16. And the sign will be positive because the larger number, the 23, has a positive number. Okay, let's go on to the next one. 81 plus a negative 9. Well, we take the absolute value of the negative 9. So there's absolute value, and we subtract it from the 81. So it would be 81 minus 9, which gives us 72. We have negative 20 plus negative 54. If negative plus a negative, we will still have a negative, and it will be negative 74. Here we have different signs, which means we subtract and keep the sign of the larger number. So 28 minus 4 equals 24. So the answer will be a positive 24. We have negative 9 plus 20. Subtract and keep the sign of the larger number. The absolute value of 20 is larger than the absolute value of negative 9. So we would be a positive answer. 20 take away 9 is 11. Here we have two negatives. We just add them together and keep the sign. 55 plus 15 is 70. Since both signs are negative, our answer will be negative. Now we have a positive and a negative. So we ignore the sign, subtract the smaller one from the larger one. So 24 minus 23 equals 1. And we keep the sign of the larger number. So that's it for our practice, our initial set. We have 2 more pages to do. So take a minute and try those 2 pages, and then come back to the video. Okay, I hope you worked on these on your own. Let's see how you did. Different signs, a positive 43 and a negative 54. We're going to subtract and keep the sign of the negative, which would be negative 11. Negative 24 plus 6. We ignore the signs, subtract the 6 from the 24, and we get negative 18. Here we have 2 positives. We simply add them together to get 32. Here we have a negative and a positive, so we ignore the signs, subtract the smaller from the larger, and then when we write our answer, we'll take the sign of the larger absolute value, which will give us negative 1. Here we have the same sign, so we just add them together for a negative 54. Here we have different signs, so we're going to ignore the signs and subtract. So it would be 39, take away 34, which is 5. And what sign should that 5 be? Well, the larger absolute value here is the 39, so the 5 is positive, just as the 39 is positive. Now we have different signs, 37 plus a negative 8, so it would be 37 minus 8, which would equal 29. Negative 61 plus 33. We're going to subtract 33 from 61 and keep the negative sign. That would be a negative 28. 2 negatives, so we just add them up. Negative 8 and negative 32 is negative 40. Now we have a positive and a negative, so we ignore the sign and subtract 38 from 51, which gives us 13, and we'll keep the sign of the larger absolute value, which is the 51. Here we have negative 6 plus 84. Ignore the signs and subtract. So it would be 84 minus 6, which would be 78. And the answer is positive like this because 84, the absolute value of 84 is much bigger than the absolute value of 6. Here we have addition, some good old-fashioned addition, both positives. 8 plus 34 equals 42. Now here we can apply our new rules. 7 plus a negative 12, ignore the signs. 12 take away 7 is 5. And we have to keep this negative sign in the answer because that's the larger absolute value. And then negative 9 plus negative 23, just simply add them together and keep the sign for an answer of negative 32. Let's move on. Okay, we've got some error analysis here. That's my favorite part. We have to figure out what was done incorrectly. Each one of these answers is wrong. What was done wrong? That's why we call it error analysis. So whoever did number 1 wrote negative 5 plus negative 14. Well, we know when we have the same sign, we keep the sign. So the answer should be a negative 19. So we have a sign error in the sum or the answer. So we have a sign error in the answer. And how should that be? We should have negative 5 plus negative 14. Let's write that a little more neatly. Negative 14. Same sign, keep the sign, so the answer would be negative 19. Okay, here they added instead of subtracting the 6. This should be 31 plus a negative 6, which is really, students, the same as 31 minus 6. And 31 minus 6 does not equal 37. So first of all, let's write down what they did wrong. They added instead of subtracting. So when we do it correctly, it would be 31 plus a negative 6. So that would be 31 minus 6, which would be a positive 25 because we keep the sign of the 31, which is an invisible plus sign. Last one, it says for negative 14 plus a negative 23. Well, when you add 14 and 23, you do get 37, but it should be a negative because we're adding two negatives together. So we have a sign error in the sum. So what it should be is negative 14 plus negative 23. I'm going to use parentheses. You should get in the habit of doing that. And that's going to now equal a negative 37. So go back to your exit ticket, which asks you to write the rule for when the integers have different signs. And your homework tonight is just to finish up anything that you have not finished in class. Try a few of these on your own. You can find them online or on Khan Academy. It would be a good idea to get some extra practice because you'll be using this very much this year and next, and for the next 3 years in math class. Have a wonderful day. Great job.